Place. Right. That's what you're used to.
That was over at Charles.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Holland Land Office this morning for the next edition of our Java with Joe. Thank you to our sponsor, Tim Hortons, for the coffee and donuts. So hopefully you are enjoying them.
Hey. Save me one, will you? Oh, okay.
No.
Grab it now.
So today we have our good friend Richard Beatty here, who is going to be talking about, hopefully you figured out from the outfit, maybe not, Dr. Seuss during World War II. So I will let him entertain us, Mr. Cat in the Hat.
Thanks for coming. Good show.
Yes.
Good number of people. I like that. If anybody has trouble hearing my voice, let me know. I try not to don the microphone because I'll screw it up. So. Is that everything all right? Voice level is good?
Hey, just don't go whispering.
I will not whisper.
There you
It's
go.
not in my
There
style.
we go.
Again, my name is Richard Beatty. I picked this book up probably more than 10 years ago, and it sat on my bookcase, and I would open it up and look at the individual drawings that Seuss had drawn. I never really read the book, and earlier this year, a committee member at the Book Sandwich Den in Batavia at the Richmond Library, we decided to have a graphic arts series, so we did a number of books on graphic arts. And I said, hey, how about Dr. Seuss Goes to War? Well, what's that? So I did that one. I also, there was another great one called the Comic Book Story of Beer. I really wanted to do that one, but actually Ted Hawley did that one. So I was all set to do this presentation on the 23rd of April, and I had somewhat of a medical situation, and I had to cancel. I think the first ever cancellation of the Book Sandwich Den in 40-something years, so I had that on. But anyway, on with Dr. Seuss Goes to War. Is anybody familiar with, I know you're familiar, you have a book. Anybody else familiar with Seuss, what he did during World War II? Nobody? All right. You're familiar. Oh, okay. Well, this is the cover of the book. I'll stick to the script as much as I can here. Theodor Seuss Geisel, and it's actually pronounced Seuss, rhymes with Royce. Born in 1904 in Springfield, Massachusetts. German was the spoken language in the household. His family was evangelical Lutheran. Services were conducted in German. During World War I, Theodor, then a Boy Scout, sold U.S. war bonds. One of them he sold to his grandfather. And then later on, $1,000 worth of war bonds that Dr. Seuss, then Theodor Geisel sold during that period of time. He was one of 10 Springfield Boy Scouts to win the award with successful sales. So after he went to Springfield Public Schools, he went on to Dartmouth College up in New Hampshire. And he started drawing cartoons probably in high school, and then he joined the school newspaper at Dartmouth. Toward the end of his 4 years there, he announced to his father that he was going to go to Oxford. He had intention to go to Oxford. His father mentioned it to a newspaper reporter. The newspaper reporter put it in the paper. He didn't really have a scholarship to Dartmouth. So his father, because he wanted to keep the family honor, paid the dime for Seuss to go to Dartmouth. And he spent a year there, and that's where he discovered the life of academia is not for me. Toured Europe for about a year after that, and came back to the United States in 1925. All right. Bear with me. So, as Dr. Seuss, as we know him, he sold 700 million copies of his books over the years. I love some of those facts there. 20 languages. In 2020, I love this one. In 2020, Green Eggs and Ham sold more than 338,000 copies.
Yeah.
And in 2020 alone, he made $33 million more, the second only to Michael Jackson as far as a dead celebrity. The Cat in the Hat took less than 3 years after publication to reach 1 million copies. So he's a successful guy. And there's a list of all the books, not all the books, these are all the books that were published under his name. He also published under an alias, a pseudonym, I guess you could say, later on. I love the first one. We'll be showing you some graphics from the first book he ever wrote, 1931, which was Pocket Book. The Pocket Book of Boners, the old-fashioned way of what a boner is. It's a social gaffe. 500 hats, Bartholomew Covens, all these are pre-World War II. Didn't sell well at all. I'll give you some stats on that as we move on through. The one that we're really going to focus on is, anybody find it anywhere? The 1958, 58, Yertle the Turtle and Other Stories. All right, guys, anybody familiar with Yertle the Turtle?
Yeah.
All right, Richard Minear is a retired professor at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. He was an expert on the relations post-World War II in Japan. He lived in Japan for a number of years. You can see the books that he wrote during that period. I think probably most famous for the book on the Tokyo War Crimes Trial, and that was published in 1971. All right, why in the heck is Spiegelman? You may know who Spiegelman, Art Spiegelman, a cartoonist out of New York City. He's famous for doing a series on his relationship with his father. His father was a prisoner of war in the concentration camp in Germany, and he came back to the U.S. As Art was growing up, his father would tell these stories of his incarceration and all the things, terrible things that happened to him. So he created a series of comics, if you will, on that topic, eventually published as a book called Mouse. I believe it won the Pulitzer Prize, or the first cartoon book to win the Pulitzer Prize. And he's up here because he does the introduction, a very, I think, poignant introduction. Let's see. Let's go to that. So this is in the beginning, the introduction. What? Dr. Seuss, beloved purveyor of genial rhyming nonsense for beginning readers, stuff about cats and hats and foxes and soxes? He started as a feisty political cartoonist who exhorted America to do battle with Hitler? Yeah, right. And Ed Reinhardt, the guy who painted austere black and black abstractions, used to draw comic strips explaining modern art to the uninitiated. Actually, both of these things, unlikely phenomena, in fact, did occur in the pages of what may well have been America's most remarkable daily newspaper, New York's PM magazine. The short-lived popular front tabloid eschewed all paid advertising, though it did print announcements in department store bargains as news items. In some happier alternative universe, PM is still being published daily, and Dr. Seuss was awarded a Pulitzer Prize for his anti-fascist PM cartoons of 1941 and 42. Well, actually, Dr. Seuss did receive a Pulitzer in the universe we inhabit. The special citation in 1984 was given for his contribution of over a half a century to the education and enjoyment of America's children and their parents. The PM cartoons made us more aware of the political messages often embedded within the sugar pill of Dr. Seuss' signature zaniness. For better or worse, the didactic moralist struggled for supremacy over the iconoclastic jokester and much of his mature? Could that be the right adjective? Yes, Yertle the Turtle is an anti-fascist tract. The Sneetches is clearly a plea for racial tolerance. What are those stars on our bellies if not Megan Davis? The Lorax is an environmental message that overwhelms any of the nonsense. The Butter Battle Book was a polemic for nuclear disarmament and created a blizzard of controversy when it first appeared in 1984. Spiegelman's foreword ends with this. And now rescued from newsprint from where they've been molded unseen for over half a century, the cartoons let us know what happens when Horton hears a hi-hat. All right. I love that style. This is some of the things that Seuss did in the 1920s and 30s. Anybody remember Flip? Yes. We're all way too young. Even us, we're too young for Flip. So this, Dr. Seuss is doing this advertising. All right, so from 27 to 41, Dr. Seuss lived in New York City drawing humor magazines for an obscure magazine, Judge, which billed itself as the world's wittiest weekly. Occasionally he drew for more prestigious journals such as the Saturday Evening Post. One of his cartoons incorporated the bug spray flip, which caught the eye of a white advertising executive for Standard Oil of New Jersey. Soon, Seuss was on the payroll of SM of New Jersey, earning what was then a sizable income of $12,000 a year. This went on for many years. So during the Depression, when many Americans suffered severe financial hardship, Dr. Seuss did not. In his words, it wasn't the greatest pay, but it covered my overhead so I could experiment with my drawings. There's a few more. He coined the phrase, "Quick, Henry the Flit." I love this one. Maybe Elon Musk is on Mars right now with his flit. I'm not sure. There's a Earth to Mars, and then he also did ads for motor oil.
What's that first word? Hang it all?
What's that?
What was the first word? Did that say hang it all?
Hang it all! I forgot my flip. I love this one on the left of the dinosaur. Dr. Seuss gets a little risque with some of his artwork. You can see the woman's in the whatever that is. I guess it's a cave, completely naked, and the guy's trying to get home, but he's being attacked by the bugs. Quick, Henry the Flip. And the last one is, I'll read that one to you. That was done for General Electric, and you can see Satan and his gang up there on the podium. And the guy's on the skillet being roasted. And he says to Satan, "Old stuff, Satan, old stuff. Why, for a few paltry dollars, a General Electric wiring system contractor could wire all hell, and you could run this toaster by electricity." Bizarre advertising of it. But that's what they did. All right. Pocket book of voters.
If you go back, what should he sign at the very top? By Dr.
Dr. Theodor Seuss.
Okay.
It's another name that he went by, I guess, at least for that cartoon. All right, this is his very, very first book. He also did I guess it spawned a couple of collaborations with another artist. I think there were 2 other books along the same theme. That was in 1931, and you can see the rest of the books that preceded World War II. All right, these are the 2 of the cartoons that were in the pocketbook of voters. The one on the left says, "Sirens in the middle of the ocean. Nobody could came near them, they made so much noise." So it's sort of a take on the sirens of mythology. The second one is, "Henry VIII had an abbess on his knee, which made walking difficult." He's trying. You can see certainly the Dr. Seuss style starting to evolve. All right, Ralph Ingersoll. Ralph Ingersoll. There's a name. Anybody heard of Ralph Ingersoll? Yeah, no. Well, Ralph Ingersoll has got a name. Yes, you.
Would you mind going, I think it's 2 back to that 1931 book? I couldn't speed read fast enough underneath. Could you read that out loud? My eyesight's not good. The bottom front.
I can't. It's not. It's a little blurry.
Huh?
It's a little blurry. I can't read what's underneath.
Could you read it?
No, I can't. It's too blurry.
You cannot read it?
No.
Any other sharpshooters out here could read it to me?
All right, let's move on. All right.
I guess that's a no.
No, I can't read it. It's
There's got to be
very,
somebody out
very
here who
blurry.
could read it to
And
me.
if I tried to read it, I would probably screw it up. So.
I'll find it online.
All right. So Ralph Ingersoll. All right. Get back to this. Fame and fortune did not come immediately to Dr. Seuss. In the first 6 years, it happened on Melbury Street, sold 32,000 copies, which is quite a bit. King Still sold fewer than 5,000 copies the first year and only 400 by the third. Horton Hatches and Egg sold 6,000 in year 1 and 1,600 in year 2. So he was making some money, but certainly not enough to propel his career forward. All right. Pocketbook of Boners contain 22 illustrations of Howler's blunders drawn by Seuss. The rest of the volume consists of short jokes and humorous observations, with most being no more than 4 lines long. It is noticeable for being an early example of its distinct illustration style. All right, Ralph Ingersoll. Ralph Ingersoll was born in 1900, so he's a little bit older than Dr. Seuss. He began his career at a new publication, The New Yorker, in 1925. Then he took on Fortune magazine in 1930, and then was hired by Time to be their general manager. And he helped to launch Life magazine in 1936. According to legend, Henry Luce, the owner of the big cheese at Time Life, offered him $1.5 million in stock value to sign a 5-year contract with the company. But instead, he said, no, I'd rather do something else. He launched PM, a left-leaning daily in 1940. It was always ad-free and survived with the financial backing of Marshall Field III. Anybody know Marshall Field? The Chicago department store magazine. Well, the grandson had a lot of disposable income, and apparently he caught on to this idea of supporting PM magazine. And he supported it through all its years. It never made money. After an initial flurry of public interest, their circulation dropped to about 31,000. So it was a New York City magazine, pale in comparison to the other publications of the era. Ingersoll, after his number of years with PM magazine, he actually joined the Army in 1942, but since he had been in World War I as a very young man, he was elevated to an officer. He served in England on the invasion planning staff and was the chief American representative of the deception program designed to keep the Nazis guessing about the location of troop landings and other operations. The unit became known as the Ghost Army. And that's a very interesting story. I think I was saying earlier that would make a really good book to read about Ingersoll's career. He also served with Omar Bradley in the tank division. All right. I decided that the word propaganda nowadays, when you say propaganda, you assume it's biased, it's not factual, it's a bunch of hooey. Some people and other people, it's the truth. So I decided to go to my 1951 definition, dictionary of the word propaganda, and you can read it there. Actually started with society in Rome. My friend Papal here could tell me all about that. So, and you can see the definition of propaganda is any society or means used to advocate or teaching a particular doctrine. So if you go to the modern version, which you'll find on the trusty internet calls it a congregation of the Roman Cura having jurisdiction over missionary territories and institutions. That's the original definition. And then we come on spreading ideas, information, or rumor for the purpose of helping or injuring an institution. And last but not least, ideas, facts, and allegations spread deliberately could cause one harm or damage or opposing cause. So PM magazine was definitely a propagandist. A couple of pictures on the opening page here. This is an interesting one on the left. It's a group of New York City boys playing, instead of cops and robbers, they're playing Americans and Germans. And apparently this young man has been caught as a spy, and it's quite an amazing photograph actually, when the shadows of the boys getting ready to execute him. That's the tenor of the times. And of course, the headline on the, I forget what date this is, that June 14th, 1940, headline of the Nazi troops marching into Paris. All right, so how did Dr. Seuss come to be working for Ingersoll Rand and PM magazine? Well, he drew this cartoon, and does anybody know Virginio Gatta? Gatta? No? He was the chief propagandist, if you will, for the Italian government. He pounded out the keys of this typewriter, if you can see here. He's Dr. Seuss style. He's strapped in and he's pounding on a steam-powered typewriter. And then a little note in the corner. PM magazine does not hold itself responsible for the opinions of the editor at Editorial, and that is God. So that cartoon he submitted to Ingersoll. Ingersoll liked it, hired him immediately, and that began about a 16-month, 18-month career at PM magazine. Okay, the book is divided not so much by chronology, but by by subject matter. So the cartoons, excuse me, the comics, whatever you want to call them, go back and forth through that period of time. He took special delight in lampooning Mr. Lindbergh. Lindbergh, of course, was the head of America First, which is a movement to keep us out of the war. We don't want to get anything European. That's their problem, not ours. So Dr. Seuss did these cartoons, and this one I love, In God We Trust. And how? There's Lindbergh as a ostrich with his head in the sand. You'll see this in a number of cartoons. I'll have it. And if you get the book, and you have the book, you can go through and see even more of it. So PM Magazine has a typical cover. He's got two cartoons on there. This one, of course, the top. And over here, he's riding, this couple riding on the luxury vehicle. Sometimes I wonder if we would speed things up if we used turtles instead of snails, because the effort to get us into the war was not going rapidly enough for PM Magazine. So Dr. Seuss came up with these cartoons to propel it forward. On the left, what a lucky thing, we've got separate beds. And you see Europe with Nazi fever, Blitz spots, Hitleritis, Stalinist itch, fascist fever, and there's the same cartoon, a little clearer of Dr. Charles Lindbergh, his head in the sand as a... Okay. And more of these cartoons you'll see. In this case, we've got Hitler, and we've got Hirohito, and I don't know where Mussolini is. He must be hiding out somewhere. Riding in a car. So we're back home and we're out driving around. We're wasting gasoline. Meanwhile, the Axis is getting more powerful and more people dying. And Lindbergh is saying, well, we're okay. This cartoon says, fellow experimenters, we have gathered here today to make the eagle and the jellyfish. And that's Dr. Seuss's typical characterization of America with the top hat on. I want to get rid of the hat because things get a little ugly.
Is that September 41?
Yeah, 1941, September 1941. So all these cartoons, all these drawings were done between January of 41 and early 1942. About 18 months, 16 to 18 months.
So right before Cold War.
Yeah. And there were about 400 of them. You can see this one, again, trying to extort the people to get involved, to press for U.S. involvement in the war. Of course, as you can see, October 5th, 1941, we're just 2 months away from Pearl Harbor. Then I learned about guts. And I love this one over here. He starts to introduce the racism card. You notice that the guy's got a sign that said, no colored labor needed. There seems to be a white man in the woodpile, these two guys are saying over here. And over here is the same thing. This is the summer of 1942, so this is after the war started, so he continues that same theme. We've got a piano, black labor, white labor, black labor are the black keys, and the white labor on the white keys. The war industry, the guys say, listen, maestro, if you want to get real harmony, use the black keys as well as the white keys. The last one over here, that's Talmadge, I believe, from Georgia. What does he say? You can keep your American eagle. I got a bird of my own. And race hatred is the bird on his shoulder. Some things never change. All right, I love this one. Tax-exempt securities loophole for the rich. Pay your poll tax over here. Come on, small fry, you pay at the turnstile. And who's he standing on the back of? The House Ways and Means Committee. He wasn't afraid to get into the politics. And over here we have another one. Poll tax. All the people trying to get in. 10 million people who haven't got the price to go through the polls. Vote here if you can afford it. All right, so he goes into Hitler and Nazi Germany. I love this particular cartoon. You've got all the countries of Europe, starting with France, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Norway, Holland, Belgium, Yugoslavia, you name them all. And there's Hitler, commanding the cow to, commanding them all to be milked dry.
Does anyone know why he didn't go to Switzerland other than their...
He didn't what?
Why he never went to Switzerland through the mountains? Or down to Italy?
I don't, Switzerland was, it's a tough,
Because it's mostly.
geographically, it's always been tough to get through Switzerland, so that's their,
That's why.
yeah.
You're prepared to fight.
They were prepared to fight, too.
Easy to
Wouldn't take any gun. All right, this is the reason I took the hat off. Look at this cartoon on the left. The gentleman's name is Laval, who is singing with Hitler. Only God can make a tree to furnish sport for you and me. And those are all Jews hanging by their necks in trees. So Seuss was not averse to, you know, being very graphic and very shocking in his art.
Who was Laval?
Laval was the Vichy government's leader at that time. He and Pétain, we'll get to him in just a moment. The other one says, crawl out and round me up another 400,000 Frenchmen. And there's Laval down crawling here on the ground. He looks very sinister. I love this early Mein Kampf. Here's Hitler being delivered by the stork. I gave the hot foot to the stork that brings me. And it was April 20th, 1889 when Hitler was born. And the last one is on the Hitler series. It is rather striking as well. You've got all the individuals doing Heil Hitler to their creator, and the creator is molding them in the Nazi mold. All right. Good news, Francois. We've signed you to fight Kid Britain. And here's France, all beat to hell. And here comes Hitler in his suit. And I love the cat. He's always got cats in it. And this one is quite interesting. On the other side, on the other panel, is Pétain. Pétain was a World War I hero in France. He was well respected. He became part of the government in France, but he was on the Vichy side, not on the French resistance. So here you can see Hitler with the one arm up, another arm is picking the pocket of Pétain. Pétain is going, put up your arm like this and your trumpets are all over. So it's really pushing the French to capitulate to the Nazis who were overrunning France. Now, this brings me to a personal story, and this is, actually if you want to just pass that around, you can feel the age in it. My father was a finance officer in World War II, came ashore at Normandy in 1944, I think the 13th day after the initial assault on the continent. Went across Europe, paying the troops, and sending home letter after letter after letter, and I was just buried underneath all these letters. Well, the other day, I was actually about 2 months ago, I was cleaning out the garage, and I came across this piece of paper, and you can see it written in French over here. On the back side of that, my father said, "Save this." So apparently, my mother saved it, and I've saved it for 25 years and just discovered it. A friend of mine knows French, so she translated it. Basically, this is written from Pétain, who is the head of the Vichy government in France, appealing to the French population to don't make waves, basically. Don't mess up France. Don't try to, fight the German army. They're going to be our friends. So obviously, the French resistance took great umbrage to this particular piece of this poster that went out. And my father, coming across Europe, fighting, basically, he wasn't a combat officer, but he was following the combat officer. Come across something like this, what? Here we are fighting, and you've got some of the French people trying to capitulate. Nice tie-in. And here's another cartoon. He took particular delight in skewering both Laval and Pétain. Here's Marianne, look what the cat brought back, Miss Laval. The Nazis actually installed him as president of the country, of the Vichy government. And last but not least, we have a nice collection of heads on the wall. And now Hitler is trying to capture Russia. And Russia's, maybe they're not going to be quite as easy as the rest of Europe. And this one I love, the little tobacco juice where it counts. And this is, of course, the Doolittle raid on Tokyo in early 42, I don't know the exact date. The cartoon's from April 20th, 1942. And the American forces dropped bombs on Tokyo and then, of course, crash landed in China, except for our group that ended up crash landing in Russia and then spending about 18 months in captivity. Over here on the right, we have the stylized image of Hirohito, fat face, squinty eyes, the glasses, and then, oh, me, I'm the climax of the act, the complete and utter destruction. They're jumping and they're winning the war until we entered the war, and obviously we know what the rest of history brought us. All right, winning the war.
Richard?
Yes.
I was just wondering how he had access to the military stuff. Was it through like other newspapers or how?
You know, I'm sure that, you know, PM Magazine, there was one of the things I read about them, they were very short on staff and a lot of office people. So I think they probably were getting their information from other papers, from other news sources, and then publishing it. I'm sure Seuss was also reading the, you know, the other New York publications at the time to get the information on the war. So, yeah. Quick Henry the Flip comes out once again. Of course, this time we've got the Nazis as some sort of mosquito or hornet or wasp, and then Hirohito, and then Mussolini. Poor Mussolini. He doesn't get hardly any credit. You know, Seuss treats him with a lot of disrespect. He didn't have a whole lot of respect for Mussolini at all. Of course, neither did the Germans. All right, so back home. Now we've gone through. You know, PM Magazine has launched this campaign to push for us to join the war. It helped. He used the word help for Pearl Harbor to come along. That certainly propelled us into the war on both fronts. But now it's a matter of winning the war, and that's Dr. Seuss. You know, once 1942 was in full bloom, the effort now is to make sure that we do everything we can to ensure that the battles are won in Europe. So calling on the American people to do what they can to support the effort. And he pokes fun at a lot of different people. We have John F. Hindsight here, master strategist of yesterday's battle, famed for the great words, we coulda, we shoulda, and of course with his, you know, his telescope looking backwards. The one on the right, the veteran calls the Battle of Brest, the battle of 1943. There we were, Japs to the left, Germans to the right, closing in. Did I run? I did not. Unyielding, I sat in this chair and groused about the annoying shortage of fuel oil. Over here we have erected in the honor of wishful listeners. They spent the war listening for the sudden cracking of German morale. It won't be long now, they're saying. Over here we have, you belong to any of these groups? The creepers, the weepers, or the sleepers? Do not disturb until after the war. That was done in 1942, April of 1942. Boss, maybe you better hawk me and buy more U.S. savings bonds. And there's the moose talking to the homeowner there. Japs sink U.S. ships. And we'll see and talk about this turtle V. You can't build a substantial V or victory out of the turtles. And you can see all the turtles standing up on top of dwaddling producers. Again, trying to, yes sir?
What was that event after? Because I did a research paper on Japan and American ships, and there was a significant event.
This one?
Yeah.
December 26, 1941.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's all right.
It's right after Christmas, but Pearl Harbor was
Yeah, Pearl Harbor had already
the
happened.
7th, so 19 days later. Got it.
I'm sorry, I cut off a lot of the dates on the picture.
Yeah, it's just because there was stuff going on before that in the Pacific warfront, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
And there's the we coulda, we shoulda, we woulda quartet, the Alibi Boy, the song and dance team of the Democratic Nations. And the two gentlemen in the audience, it's kind of like those two guys in the Muppet Show, Sheridan and Waldorf. You know, their act is getting to be trifle corny. All right. Now here's the guys inside going up. I'd attack the Aleutians. I'd attack the French coast. But nobody wants to attack that scrap building up in the backyard. That was August of 1942. I would say the August 1942 was probably one of his last cartoons he did excuse me, for the paper. The last one over here is, Americans are going and traveling, you're wasting gas. Why are you doing that? Instead of going traveling, you should stay at home. Excuse me. Over here we have Hirohito and Hitler on Mount Rushmore. That's that's an idea that could have happened, I suppose. Don't let them carve these faces on our mountains. Again, extorting people to buy those war bonds, saving bonds. Again, this was just days after Pearl Harbor, December 12, 1942. And I love this one on the left, on the right. So long as men can do this, they're free, and they're all giving Hitler the. All right. So Dr. Seuss. Anytime you get off track, got a couple of things here. I'll go back to Dr. Seuss and Ingersoll. They seem to be cut from the same cloth. Ingersoll was a prominent journalist, and here it is. We propose to seek constructively, this is his motto for the paper, we propose to applaud those who seek constructively to improve the way men live together. We are American and we prefer democracy to any other form of government. The fascist philosophy represents a live threat to everything we believe in, beginning with the democratic way of life. We do not believe either the study of the works of Karl Marx or the membership of the Communist Party is antisocial. Just a couple of minutes.
He looks a little bit like Mr. Rogers.
He does look a lot like
Yes, he
Mr. Rogers.
does.
All right, so at the conclusion of the war, I talk about both Ingersoll and, I talk about Ingersoll's role in the war. Dr. Seuss joined the Army in 1942 and went to work for Frank Capra. You guys know the name Frank Capra? Noted filmmaker. Well, he was in charge of promoting or creating films sort of outlining our position in the war effort. They did one on Germany, they did one on Japan, and then of course as the war started to wind down, they started to do films about Japan. And Seuss worked for Capra on a couple of those, and the author of the book, Mr. Minear, who spent years in Japan, and if you're going to check this book out, if you're going to buy this book, I highly advise reading the concluding thoughts first, because it really sort of ties the whole thing together. Of course, Dr. Seuss is now, he's finished his tenure with the Army, he's come home, and now the books are starting to come, and they, of course, are going to get more and more famous, but he's always been looking, the initial books that he wrote post-World War II definitely have the influence of his experience with PM magazine, and also went to Japan in 1945 and made a couple of films. So, what's the time?
Almost 22:10.
9:40. All right. Frank Capra was one of Hollywood's most successful directors. During the war, he became the Army's premier propagandist and produced Why We Fight, a series of films that sets out to explain to the American people, military and civilians, what the war was about. Seuss, at about almost 40 years old, spent the next years making films with him, including two that we should consider shortly. And that is the two that we consider that shortly are, of course, Bartholomew and the Oblak, If I Ran the Zoo, Scrambled Eggs, Supper, and How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and many others. There were movies and 3 Oscars. He won an Oscar for Hitler Lives in 1946. This is Seuss. Death, Designed for Death in 1947, and Gerald McBoing in 1951. Campaign for Literacy, of course, The Cat in the Hat, Green Eggs and Hams, Fox and Socks, and all the rest. We focus now on Yertle the Turtle. We're going to get when I'm wrapping this up, we're gonna get to watch a little bit of a movie. So be prepared to cut this off, Paul, in case, you know, the evil internet police go, oh no, you can't play that, that's copyright material. I'm not sure if it is, but we'll see. All right, so Dr. Seuss produced Yertle the Turtle and Other Stories in 1958. It has delighted readers ever since. It is the story of a turtle king, Yertle, who wants to see and rule beyond his pond. He orders his subject turtles to stand on each other's backs, with Yertle, of course, on top. The taller the tower, the more overweening the ambitions of Yertle, and the heavier the weight pressing down on the unfortunate turtle slow down on the tower. At the bottom is a turtle named Mac. At the climax of the tale, Mac burps, and the tower and Yertle come tumbling down. The story concludes, in turtles, of course, all the turtles are free, as turtles and maybe all creatures should be. And if you've noticed, there's the, Ryan's, there's that stack of these. So now, this is 58, so this is, 12 years after the war is when he created Yertle the Turtle. Yes, sir?
And if you go to the conservatory in
Yeah.
Rochester, they have a bunch of turtles,
Yeah?
and they can stack, I've seen 7 to 10 of them at once.
Yeah, they do that, yeah. I've
They can
seen.
stack on each other, but not in a V.
Not the people, yeah. We got a great picture of turtles on a log in Pinyan, so yeah, they do like to stack up like that. So Seuss definitely took a natural act and sort of obviously exemplified it. All right, continue on with this. This is some thoughts that Dr. Seuss had about the creation of Yertle the Turtles. In an interview in 1987, 4 years before Dr. Seuss died, he commented, Yertle was Hitler or Mussolini. Originally, Yertle had a mustache, but I took it off. I thought it was gilding the lily a little bit. Yertle is a dictator, plain and simple, expansionist in his desire to see further and further until he is toppled because, in Dr. Seuss's words of 1987, Mac the turtle holding up the throne from the bottom bursts. Just to show you how things have changed, my publisher, Random House, had a director's meeting. Decided I should be allowed to use the word burp. The top good old man at that time was a sophisticated Bennett Cerf. Bennett Cerf was the top man at Random House. Burp, can you imagine? Minear goes on to say that the parallel with Hitler is far from exact. Although he too overextended himself, Hitler was toppled not from below, but from outside force. And nowhere in Yertle the Turtle is there any reference to that other aspect of Hitler's legacy, the Nazi Holocaust. To be sure, the current concern with the European Holocaust developed largely after 1958. Still, the question we ask arises once again. Is Dr. Seuss's Hitler adequate to the task of representing the real Hitler? Many years later, in the 1980 interview, Dr. Seuss had this to say about his general approach. I always want the good guys to win. I don't deal in tragedies. I tell the kids to forget it and go on to the next tragedy. He went on to speak of the fantastical and the whimsy. Fantasy is a necessary ingredient to living. It's a way of looking at life through a distorted telescope, and that's what makes you laugh at the terrible reality. Whimsy, which is a deliberate contradiction, is reality pure. In reality, it's pure escapism. And without whimsy, none of us can live. And Minear goes on to say, fantasy and whimsy are not merely necessary for life. They are Dr. Seuss's stock and trade. But there are limits to their reach. We have noted resonances between Seuss's wartime cartoon of Hitler and Charlie Chaplin's Great Dictator of 1940, in which the character Adenoid Hinkle, the dictator of Tomania, is an obvious caricature of Hitler. Writing in 1974, in My Life in Picture, Charlie Chaplin states, had I known of the actual horrors of Nazi concentration camps, I could not have made the great dictator. I wanted to ridicule their mystique bilge about a pure-blooded race. And This film that he made with his wife, the Destiny with Death, could not find any clip of it whatsoever. It just sort of disappeared. And this is a great book. All right. So in 1947, Dr. Seuss and his wife produced a film on Japan, Designed for Death. And that film won Dr. Seuss the second of his 3 Oscars for best dramatic or short drama film. The critic at the time, Bosley Crowther of the New York Times, this film received the Academy Award for Best Feature-Length Documentary of 1947. Apparently, competition in that category was nil. In 1998, prints of Designed for Death are very hard to find. Fortunately, the Library of Congress holds a copy, unless it's been expunged, but that's another story. Well, hey.
You never know.
You never know. So Designed for Death, I could not find anything on. But what I did find, and I'm going to play that in just a short moment, Designed for Death really was very dated as we look at it now. He really treats the Japanese, I think, in a derogatory way. And I think Minear picked up on that as he wrote this conclusion to the book. So my advice, get the book, check the book out. It really gives you another look at how history played out there in the 1930s and 40s and the role that, of all people, Dr. Seuss had in it. So am I able to use the YouTube here?
My name's the Mac. I come from the bottom of the turtle stack. I got pains in my back and knees. How much longer, your majesty? I know you're the king, but I gotta complain. The crew down here is in a lot of pain. Up at the top, you're seeing great sights, but down at the bottom, we too have rights.
You hush your mouth. You've no right to talk to the world's highest turtle. I rule over clouds, over land, over sea, and there's nothing, no nothing that's higher than me. Nothing.
While he was shouting, he saw with surprise the moon of the evening started to rise over his head in the darkening sky.
What's that? Say, what is that thing that dares to be higher than Yertle the king? I'll call some more turtles and I'll stack them right onto heaven. I think I'll need about 5,607.
As Yertle the Turtle King lifted his hand and started to order and give the command, that plain little turtle, whose name was just Mac, decided he'd taken enough, and he had.
And
And that plain little lad got a little bit mad. And that plain little Mac did a plain little thing. He burped. King of the mud.